As a small Rimworld YouTuber, sometimes I get asked, why do I play Rimworld and why do I enjoy it so much? Now, to most people I'll just say, it's a story generated game with a fantastic modern community, and that's why I love it. But really what I want to say is that I love committing war crimes, but apparently society doesn't like that. And a great mod, for example, is today's mod that we're going to be reviewing, the Biological Warfare mod made by Ushanka, a fantastic mod that I think adds a really unique concept that initially I didn't think it was going to be as unique as it was. Let's get into things and let's start with the content. So the content, let's start with our first impressions, the Steam Workshop page. What is there and what do we see? Well, initially we have the first photos and everything that show us what's in the mod. We have an about section, and then we get into the content section. Every little bit of content that's added by this mod has got a description, a picture, and the resources that are there to make it. And we have compatibility and balancing stuff as well. This is everything I want and more from a Steam Workshop page. It does everything I want and it describes everything I need to know about. The only way that I can see this being improved, and it's extremely minor, is to see everything animated with GIFs. However, that's not necessary. This is pretty much perfect. So what does the content look like in game? So from my count, we have 63 unique items. 3 of those items are used to make the viruses and bacterium in this mod, and the rest are just the bacteriums and the viruses and some other extra bits and pieces here and there. You're going to be able to use the bacteria and the viruses for good and evil, being able to heal people and help people, or causing mass destruction. Depends on what your cup of tea is. So like with a cup of tea, there is a process that you must follow, a procedure in order to access your cup of tea and be able to enjoy it. The same with this mod. There is a procedure you must follow in order to access all the content within this mod, or else you're going to end up missing out. So for example, let's look at the flu virus and how we can replicate it and get more things out of it. So let's start with our basic colonists. They have the flu. What a shame. You can then sample this disease from them to then have a sample of the flu. The flu sample can then be put inside the virus replicator, and within an enclosed space can be used to infect more people with the flu. We can then use the disease sampler again to sample the disease from, say, a yak that has got the flu, so we can have multiples of the disease sampler and multiply it. With this disease sampled from the yak, we can then use a drug lab to turn this into various pathogens. With the basic pathogen that we can be producing from a drug lab, you can use that to weaponize this or even use this for good. We can also then take this an even step further and then use it in an antigen replicator to then make the vaccine for flu, and we can give this to colonists over a certain amount of time and days to make them immune, which is really, really good for the colonists. So as you can see, there's a very long, lengthy process in order to get the most out of this mod, and I really like that. I like that it's so involved and in depth. A very nice thing. I like this. It makes me feel like I'm a mad scientist and I'm doing this myself. So to show off how these pathogens work, let's look at the missile launchers. These, in my opinion, are the most interesting and most exciting part of this mod, because we can literally launch diseases at people and they won't even know what's coming. So let's start by showing off how it works. So what you do is you load up your cannons with the actual pathogen missiles. You then select the colonist to activate it. You would then launch it within a certain radius. It would go over like a rocket swarm missile and it would explode, creating a lovely clouded effect, or giving the colonists or whoever is inside this the effect of sleeping sickness. A fantastic little thing that I really like, and it's very pretty. It's very pretty. I like the colours. Next, the Necroa virus then gives off a sort of grey looking smoke. Next, we have the plague gas one, and this one gives off a fantastic pink colour. Next, the scarier smoke. This one gives off a fantastic red look. I really like the colour of this one. I think it's great. Next, the malaria gas, and this one kind of looks like somebody is just sort of taking a dump on my screen. Nice. Next, the flu one, and this one gives off almost a mustardy sort of yellow colour. Once again, I do quite like the colour of this one as well. And the fleshbreaker gas then gives off a sort of greeny colour. So that's what it looks like when the missiles go off. I think it's really unique and colourful. However, there were other things that we could use. We have the gas trap valves. Now, I'm not going to go through each individual one to show you what it looks like, but you can vaguely see what it does. It does a bigger radius of effect, and it does the exact same colour depending on what gas it is. I found another, looks really good. Definitely a little bit more situational because it is a trap, but still great. And as with the gas trap barrel, this will follow the exact same thing, the gas grenade launcher. This one would have been really fantastic, probably during World War II for a certain person. Very handy to do things from a distance. This one I will be talking about later in this video because it's definitely a little bit on the more powerful side. And then last but not least, we have the sort of air conditioning unit for giving off gas. This one is really, really interesting. I really like the fact that you can use this in like your bases and your prisons and everything. You could stop riots with this. You could use this in your kill boxes if you've got a really long one. I think this is actually probably the most interesting out of all of them, and I love the way that this works. And once again, the scarier smoke, fantastic red gas. I like it a lot. So how are we going to be able to access these diseases in game, and how are we going to be able to make all the fantastic things that are associated with them? Well, the mod creator has very nicely given us a nice new research tree that it allows us to specialize in whatever disease we want to be able to access and weaponize and be able to heal people with. Nice touch, and I like the fact that everything's split up into individual diseases, because it means I don't have to just go for all of them at once. I can just do whatever I find the most easy to access. So that's going to be all the content we're looking at today, and there's a lot here. I really like the AC unit for diseases, feels very on brand, and I like the gameplay things that I can do with that. I really like the gas traps. There's another addition to traps and stuff within the game, which I think in base game vanilla Rimworld, we don't really have many traps that are actually utilized. And I think the missile launcher stuff is just really cool. I like the idea that I can lay siege to a bunch of tribals with scarier virus, and I think it'll look really pretty. There's a lot of content though, as you can tell, and I think what really helps this mod is the tech tree. The fact that I can go into whatever disease I want to go for at a specific time really makes my time more efficient, and I don't feel like I'm wasting it by having access to too much content all at once. And I think that it's probably quite underrated actually how important that actually is. So I think for content, I'm very happy at giving this a 9 out of 10. I think the only way that this is let down is because there's only 8 diseases I can use. I think we could have a little bit more, I'm not gonna lie. Next, let's look at the quality of the items in the game. Now, in the mod page, the mod creator specifically advertises that this has been designed to fit with vanilla Rimworld. So I'm expecting the quality of our weapons of mass distraction to be better than base game vanilla Rimworld, but not being so much better that it's obvious in my game. Zooming in on everything, it all looks great, and it definitely is an improvement of vanilla base game, so I know it's modded, but it's not taking over from the vanilla textures. Overall, it looks good. I like all of the textures, they all work, they all make sense, and they're all color-coded, which is very important, which is what I'm finding from these mod reviews. Color coding is extremely important, so we don't have to go through everything and we can see everything from a glance. Now, whilst I love my color coding and I love things fitting with base game vanilla Rimworld, what I don't like is clipping. And unlike all other mods I've ever reviewed on this channel, this is the only mod where I've seen graphic issues with clipping. For some reason, my toxic waste barrels want to sit underneath my tool benches, which I don't think is very ideal. I assume there's probably some sort of change that can be made by the mod creator here. It's a small thing, I know, a very small thing, but when you notice things like this and you're using a very in-depth stockpile or something, I don't know, it's something that I've noticed now and I can't stop thinking about. So there we have it, that is the quality section complete, and I'm also going to be bearing in mind the colours of the smoke that I saw in the content section because I really, really liked those. So the quality of everything is fantastic, it's all of the quality I expect. I really like the colours of the gas and the smoke and everything, and I think the texture quality itself of the items added by this mod are fantastic. However, as I just showed you, the clipping, in my opinion, whilst I know it's not necessarily the biggest thing, it's an issue. It's a problem I found, and I'm not actually that impressed at the fact there is some clipping. I get that it might be unavoidable in some situations, but I don't know. I've noticed it, and I've got it in my mind now, and I've got to think about it. For quality, however, I'm still going to be giving it a 9 out of 10. Incredible stuff on the textures and everything. It all fits in really well with base game vanilla Rimworld. Next, let's look at the balancing. Now, over my time doing these mod reviews, I found 2 main components that make a balanced mod: the time cost of the player in order to access these mods with tech, and the resource cost that comes alongside it. First, let's look at the tech cost. So earlier in this mod review, I praised the tech tree. I love the fact that I can specialize into what disease I'm doing at the time and go from there. Now, the tech cost for pathogen production, the only prerequisites are electricity and drug making, fairly cheap and very standard for your Rimworld playthrough. In the mid game to late game, you're going to have these done. The rest of the research cost is pretty low. 800 for pathogen production, most diseases and everything, and then going to be 400 research, and then an additional 1200 on top of that in order to get the antibodies. It's pretty cheap and pretty reasonable. Whilst it is going to take time for you to access these things, depending on what stage you're at of your game and what research you've got, it makes sense. I mean, you're going to be able to use this, you're going to be able to play with it, and like I said, if you've not got somebody with the coronavirus or anything, you don't need to do it. If you've got somebody with the flu, you can do it pretty easily. The specialization stuff here makes the time management of the player pretty much on point here. So next, let's look at the resource cost. Now, what I'm expecting here for a mod that's advertising itself as being pretty in line with vanilla Rimworld is that most things are fairly cheap. I'm not expecting anything to go above and beyond requiring persona cores, too many advanced components, those sort of things. And clicking through and looking at all the resource cost, everything seemed fine. I didn't look at anything and think, oh, this is too expensive. Oh, I'm not going to be able to get that. I'm not going to be able very much of that. Everything was pretty cheap and it made sense to put on the more powerful things. However, when I get to the gas and missile turrets requiring over 200 disease samples for each individual turret, on top of that then making the missiles for them, I did think that was a little bit steep. In my time playing with this mod, I didn't find a way to make it efficient to get the disease samples. I couldn't just get my colonists to do it automatically. It was a thing I had to manually do. The time management there for the player may be a bit ski-whiff depending on what other projects they're doing in the base game. I don't know about the resource cost for that one, but everything else, perfect. So as I'm trying to get across throughout this section of the balancing, the time management of the player is the real key thing for balancing for this mod. And as I mentioned in the content section, there's a lot of procedures you must undertake in order to access the stuff within this content. So from my diagram, I showed up to 7 procedures you've got to take in order to access the very last thing, being the vaccines. Now you could obviously skip sections by having traders and stuff come in and buy and sell things for you, and you can obviously make things more efficient depending on what your time management is like. But there seems to be quite a lot of things that you have to do in order to access one thing and go from there to go from there to go from there. I like that. Me personally, I think I like that from a mod that's going to take over most of my time and effort within a mod pack. But for a mod pack that's large or something, or you're using lots of other different mods, the time I'd need to put into it to get access to the content, it's just not worth it necessarily. This isn't bad, but I think it's going to be very player dependent as to how you approach this mod. If you're running with a lot of other mods, the balancing for the time is not going to be quite there. But if you're using this mod as one of your main mods for your mod pack, it's fine. It's up to you as the player. And then, like I said earlier in this video, the gas grenade launcher. This was something I've actually got a couple of issues with. In terms of the resource cost, it's pretty cheap. A few components, some disease samples, and that's it. And then we go on to fire things. It's a standard grenade launcher. It fires, stops, reloads, aims, fires, and so on and so forth. However, if you have a couple of colonists with these gas grenade launchers, it's literally pointless to use the gas missile launchers. Yes, the gas missile launchers do have more range, but in a kill box situation, that doesn't really matter. These gas grenade launchers are going to outperform the gas missile launchers, in my opinion, massively. I would like to see maybe the radius of the gas nerfed for these, or maybe just the resource cost doubled, if not more. These are a little bit on the more powerful side, and it does unfortunately make the gas missile launchers slightly redundant, in my opinion. So the last point for balancing I want to cover is this mod going to absolutely ruin my gameplay because it's going to kill everything in sight? Well, here I have a colonist and I've launched every single pathogen at him, and he's fine. He's chilling and he's having a good time. He's smiling away whilst being infected with every single disease in Rimworld. He's alive, you know, he's not died yet. And that's a big factor. He's not died yet. We've still got time to heal him. We've got time to make him feel better. The great thing about this mod is that it's not overtaking combat in any regard. You're not going to be not using weapons and relying on the stuff added by the mod. It's only there to assist you and provide a different gameplay experience, which is really, really important. So where am I at with the balancing? Well, I think the damage that is actually done by the gas, it's perfect. This is just an addition to Rimworld vanilla combat. It's not actually taking over it. It's just there to assist things and make things easier for the enemies and for your own pawns, for better or worse. I think the main balancing point we need to look at here is time. The procedures that are added by this mod in order to get to the different functions that you want to be able to use, it's a little bit too much. I would like to maybe see in the future of this mod a all button added, an automatic thing so you can automatically sample diseases from a certain colonist or prisoner from a certain animal that's infected with a disease. I shouldn't have to manually select on a disease sample and then sample the disease. I haven't found another way in myself personally to do this automatically. There might be somewhere in this mod that you can just automatically set this up, but me personally, I haven't had that experience quite yet. That is the only downside of this mod, that if you are playing with a larger mod pack, the time that needs to be put into accessing the stuff in this mod, it's going to be a bit iffy, and I think you're going to really struggle accessing some things if you are time short. Overall though, for balancing, I'm very happy to give this a 7 out of 10. Generally speaking, everything else is very balanced. There's nothing that is to write home about. Yes, the missile launcher stuff is a little bit expensive and the gas grenade launcher is a little bit cheap. It's just time, and I think that's a really big part for players to think about. So next, let's look at the compatibility. Are there any bugs I need to let you know about, and how this is going to fit in with your mod packs and playthroughs? Now, in terms of bugs, I personally had no issues whatsoever. Playing this as a solo mod with no other mods or anything, no problems whatsoever. Looking through the Steam Workshop page, however, there were some issues that came up with compatibility errors and stuff like that, and obviously the mechanics added by this mod are pretty new and unique, so there are going to be some issues here and there depending on what you're doing. Overall though, for compatibility, me personally, no issues whatsoever, so just be careful if you're using different mods with this mod in tandem. So how is this mod going to fit in with your playthroughs and your mod packs? Well, funnily enough, this isn't going to work with anything that's tribal or medieval themed. However, I will add that I think a medieval overhaul of this mod would be fantastic. I can imagine the Plague Doctor stuff would go absolutely hard with this mod, and a fantastic idea potentially for another mod creator or the mod creator himself to do for this mod. Otherwise, yeah, it's not going to fit in with anything that's in those eras, and I don't think it's actually going to necessarily fit in with anything that's too space attack. This mod fits perfectly with Rimworld because it is industrial, and on top of that, I also recommend you have the Anomaly DLC. I don't know what it is, but about experimenting on animals and stuff, but it also fits really well with this mod as well. Other mods that I can recommend with this are very low because of that. So in terms of compatibility, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Not because I think this is incompatible with things, and not because of any bugs or anything. I just don't think it fits in enough with other things. It's very unique in that respect. So next, let's look at my mod recommendations. Now, like I said previously, I think this mod needs to be at the forefront of your mod packs, the main focus of it. And for that reason, I'm only going to recommend a couple of mods here that add a lot of stuff to your playthroughs. To start with, let's look at Vanilla Expanded Framework. This mod is mentioned in the Steam Workshop page as being required, but then it's not actually listed as a requirement, so I thought I'd flag that up for you guys just in case you weren't aware. Next, we have the high-tech laboratory facilities continued. Really get the evil genius vibe on the go. Next, Dubs Rim Atomics. This one's a classic, and I think it's probably the only mod that adds a significant amount of gameplay and changes gameplay in such a way that I can recommend with it, just for the sort of evil genius vibe once again. And last but not least, the Dead Man's Switch by AOBA. I think the mechanoids paired with the colours of the gas would bring a really great gameplay aspect to your game. Like I said, I don't think a lot of mods actually fit with this mod. This doesn't take away the actual usability of this mod whatsoever. I just think it would really fit a smaller, more niche mod pack that's designed around this mod. I think overall for mod recommendations, I'm very content at giving it a 6 out of 10, just because I think the mods that you're going to be able to use with this in a larger mod pack is just going to be a little bit on the more limited side. Last but not least, my conclusion. So as we start my conclusion, I want to start by saying this mod is great. It adds a fantastic, unique thing with the gas missiles, and I think that being able to weaponize base game vanilla diseases and viruses is great, and I think it's a fantastic addition that I'd love to see implemented into base game vanilla Rimworld. However, me as a player, I have very valuable time, and my time put into Rimworld is going to be focusing on certain things, and that's it. What I don't like is that I have to focus so much time into this mod. Me personally, who wants to play with loads of different mods, and Save Our Ship 2 has recently just been updated to 1.5, I want to play that a lot. I feel like this mod's going to take up too much of my time if I want to play with all these different mods, but that's just me, and that is my opinion. For content and quality, it received a 9 each respectfully. For balancing and compatibility, it both received a 7. For my mod recommendation, 6 out of 10, giving it the grand total score of 38 out of 50, which is a very solid B rating. So like I said, this mod is very, very good, as we can see from my B rating. However, your enjoyment of this mod will come down to purely how you play Rimworld. If you're playing with this with a lot of mods, I don't necessarily recommend you use this mod. If you use very few mods and very specific mods, I think this mod is a fantastic addition. And if you just love being able to disease people and you're basically pretty weird, you'll have a great time with this mod because that's what you're into. Like I've said previously, I highly recommend you guys check this mod out and actually generate your own opinion of it and not just base it off mine. But hey, if you have enjoyed today's video, consider liking, subscribing, and make sure you tell your mum about me. I'll see you next time. Thank you.